Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bibliophila, where I discuss books that inspire us and enrich our minds and help us to make the world a better place to live in. So let's begin today's episode with a review of another book. So today I'll be talking about a book called Up From Slavery, which is an autobiography by Booker Taliaferro Washington. This book holds a special place because it explains in realistic terms both the historical conditions that prevailed in the 17th century as well as the pathetic fate of a man born a slave. Booker Taliaferro Washington was born a slave on a plantation in Franklin County, Virginia, near a crossroads post office called Hales Fort, and the year was 1858 or 1859. Not much emphasis is laid on the writer's family history or as to who his grandparents were. This highlights the insignificance of the birth of a black at that time. A single-roomed log cabin was both the writer's family's home as well as the kitchen for the entire plantation. The naked earth was used as a floor and a bundle of filthy old rags was used as a bed. There was a small crack for a window which brought in both sunlight as well as severely cold winds in winter. The plantation where they lived in did not have a cooking stove. Instead, food was cooked in a fireplace. This fireplace, which was in the writer's cabin, gave out heat which was unbearable in summer. There was no question of schooling for Washington. He learned everything on his own later and went on to become a spokesman and a writer for his race after the emancipation of the slaves. He did not indulge in any sport or play because almost all of his time was occupied in manual labor. As a child, when he was not of much use, he used to carry water barrels to the men in the fields or transported large sacks of corn to the mill to get them ground. A paragraph here that beautifully explains his childhood perception of slavery is that, "I had no schooling whatever while I was a slave, though I remember on several occasions I went as far as the schoolhouse door with one of my young mistresses to carry her books. The picture of several dozen boys and girls in a schoolroom engaged in study made a deep impression upon me, and I had the feeling that to get into a schoolhouse and study in this way would be about the same as getting into paradise." The slaves in the plantation kept themselves regularly updated about the Civil War. The black man who was sent to the post office to collect the mail lingered on for some time to catch some news about the Civil War. It is stunning how the illiterate black slaves understood the long-term effects of the war. This book also talks about the impoverishment of the white plantation owners during and after the days of the Civil War. In the wake of the Civil War, there occurred a significant change in the mindset of the black slaves in the plantation. Initially, they thought that freedom was something to be enjoyed in the next world and that serving their white masters was the only thing to do in this world. Gradually, they began understanding the fact that liberty is a birthright to be cherished in this very world. Freedom, when it finally came, became a matter to be pondered upon. Hitherto, the black slaves had lived in the shadow of their white masters and worked according to their wishes and commands. After the Emancipation Proclamation, they had to build a life of their own and start fending for themselves. In order to test what freedom actually felt like, Some of the black slaves left the plantation for many days, returning only to sign various contracts with their white masters. On learning of the inhuman torture on the black slaves, one may get the idea that they cherished an ill feeling towards their white masters, but this was not so. There are certain instances when the compassionate nature of the slaves went so far that they continued supplying money and commodities to their ex-white masters even after the Emancipation Proclamation. After the emancipation of the slaves, the autobiography charts the transformation of Washington from a plantation-bound slave to a free boy who started availing education in a small school set up by the colored people in Mauldin, West Virginia. Washington started understanding the real purpose, or rather the meaning of education, when he reached the Hampton Institute for Colored People. This school was set up by the Yankees in order to educate black people of all ages. He also came to know about the dignity of labor, and that even if you are a person from a wealthy elite background, there is no shame in working manually for a cause. Instead, genuine happiness can be found only in helping other people. There was a considerable dependence of the black people on the white federal government. The writer feels that one must pave one's own way in the world, not for selfish individual gain, but for the betterment of humanity as a whole. Although slavery has been wiped off in the United States of America and black people have been given their fundamental rights, still racial prejudice exists. We must keep in mind that slavery existed only because of economic disparity. Although the world has progressed a lot today and in many countries we have democratic governments, still inequalities persist not only in the economic sphere but also in the world of gender and race. Recently, the tragic murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis is the testimony to the fact how entrenched racism is in the American society. We still have to travel a lot in order to get rid of the menace of racial prejudice. I sincerely hope that you have liked this analysis of the book Up from Slavery by Booker Taliaferro Washington. If you have, please do not forget to like, share, comment and subscribe. I'll be back again with a review of yet another book. Till then, happy reading!